This is the Moonlight Graham Show, a freewheeling conversation with the role players, the underdogs, and guys with flat-out great stories in sports.
Hello and welcome back to the Moonlight Graham Show, and this week's episode is dedicated to all of those that are lacing up the running shoes on Thursday morning of this week to run the annual turkey trot, or to all of those who are planning to eat way too much at Thanksgiving dinner, and all of a sudden, after you're feeling guilty with a full stomach, you say, hey, I'm going to set an early New Year's resolution, and I'm going to run a half marathon or a marathon as a way to get your butt back into shape. This is kind of what I did about a month ago after eating way too much candy over Halloween and deciding that I needed to get in shape, and the only way that I could do that is to run a marathon 3 days later on the Wednesday of that week. So I became a marathoner by running an impromptu marathon just a few weeks back. So for today's episode, I bring in the trusted co-host Tommy Griffin, who is a two-time marathoner in his own right, and we talk about the craze of running. And the marathon is interesting to me, not only the history of it, but also why, over 500,000 people in the United States do this each and every year when it is so hard to do. It's so bad on your body. There's a million other fitness hurdles to tackle, but for some reason, running, because it's so easy and simple to do, this is the one that has caught on, especially here in America, and I recently joined the club. I kind of cheated my way into the club, though, as I walked plenty of it, and I didn't go through the full marathon training. I just up and did it. Not something that I would recommend doing, but I wanted to check it off my bucket list. So here is Tom and I's conversation about running marathons. And you know what? Happy Thanksgiving, everyone. And I hope you are running the turkey trot, because I enjoy getting a good workout in before that Thanksgiving meal. Tom Griffin is back. Tom, I feel like we need to be in a sauna right now.
That would be nice. It's cold out.
We should get back into the sauna at some point.
Anytime. Literally anytime.
Maybe over Christmas break, let's do a sauna episode.
Oh my gosh. We'll get some of that, I don't know, get some Christmas beers, it'll be perfect. Something with a little cranberry, little spice.
Yeah, what do they call that when you have like a drink of the night? A specialty cocktail?
Oh yeah.
We'll have a sauna night with a specialty cocktail.
I am 1,000% in.
Tonight we're talking about marathons. Running, walking marathons, 42.195 kilometers, 26 miles, and 385 yards. That's the official distance. I always thought it was just 26.2. It's actually like 26.22, which comes out to 26 miles and 385 yards. Tom, do you know the origination of the marathon?
Of course I do. I'm a history teacher.
I figured that's
Philippides.
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 Okay. Does that joke work in high school history classrooms?
Philippides.
Right. However you
I don't know how
pronounce
to say it. I'm not Greek.
Philippides is how I would say it.
All right.
So you tell me what
there?
I know. Yeah.
All right.
Philippides.
He's running. It's Paul Revere, right?
Yes.
He's running to alert people that not the Trojans.
The Persians.
Persians are coming, and he runs 26.22 miles, and he gets there. No, he runs 30 miles, doesn't he?
Nope. He runs less
miles.
than that.
8 miles.
He runs like 35 kilometers.
Oh, okay. I didn't know that.
So Philippides is in the Battle of Marathon.
Yes.
And he's in the battle, and he looks out into the sea, and he notices that there are Persian vessels that seem to be turning towards Athens. And he's worried that all of a sudden that Persia is going to take the war to Athens, quickly take Athens, and claim victory in the war. And so he's like, oh, hell no. And he gets on his horse, as you'd say. He doesn't actually get on a horse, though.
Of course
but
not.
He just starts running really fast. As he's running, he discards all of his armor, all of his weapons, I think all of his clothes.
There's a lot of symbolism here.
Yeah. Yeah. And by the time he gets there, like you said, Paul Revere, he says, the Persians are coming. The Persians are coming.
But he says it in Greek.
But he says it in Greek, of course. I only took 4 years of Spanish, so I only speak English. And And then, the Athenians, the Greeks in Athens, are prepared to fight off the Persians then. He saves the day.
And his heart explodes or something, right? Doesn't he die when he arrives?
As soon as he gets the message out, he collapses and dies.
There's so much symbolism to running an actual marathon.
So in the modern Olympics of 1896, they bring back the Olympic Games in 1896 in Athens, Greece, and they're looking for historical tie-ins to a lot of the events that they're going to do. And so this legend comes up. The veracity of it we don't really know, but it is in, some old tales. And apparently from Marathon to Athens, it's 35 kilometers. So the original 1896 marathon was right around like 24 miles. It was not 26.2. A couple of Olympics later in London, they were doing the marathon again. And this one, the Queen of England wanted the marathon to start or finish, I'm not sure. I think start at Windsor Castle. And so they had the 24-mile route planned. And then the Queen's like, no, I want it to start here. So they just lengthened the race by 2.22 miles.
Such a Queen move. To
make it a full, like, modern-day marathon. And that's where that distance came from. But then the marathon distance changed a couple of times before 1924. It solidified, like, hey, the marathon's always going to be this distance.
Wow.
But the first time it was at the distance was the 1908 Olympics, and then they just locked that distance in finally for the official records in 1924.
I wish they had made it like 22. Because once you hit mile 22, then everything falls apart.
Yeah. Well, the interesting part about it, and I should say the reason I wanted to bring you on the pod, Tom, is because you're a marathoner.
I am. Two-timer.
Follow us on social media. You'll see a picture of Tom with his Madison Marathon shirt and your 4 marathon medals.
My Madison Marathon 2007, I think. And then, my kids were playing with my medals today. I mean, I usually wear them around the house and carry them around. And then if my wife asks me to do something, sometimes I'll tink them together. I'll get that sound. Just a reminder. I don't know if that came through on the microphone or not, but...
Has your wife ran any marathons?
No, but she has done 2. She did the Dam to Dam once, and then she did a half marathon. I think she's done 2 halves. Because I know the Dam to Dam's not really... The old Dam to Dam wasn't really a half.
Pretty close.
But it's close enough. It's close enough for Phidippides.
That's right. It's close enough for the Greeks. It's close enough for us.
It's all Greek to me.
So the marathon records, I looked at the progression of the marathon record. In 1908, the first time they ran the 26.22, Johnny Hayes, American, runs that in 2 hours, 55 minutes, and 18 seconds. Pretty good for a guy 113 years ago.
That is insane.
Then the first time the record got under 2 hours and 40 minutes was Harry Green, 1913, ran it in 2 hours, 38 minutes.
Is that another American, or is that...
He's from the UK.
Okay.
Another American, Albert Michelson, in 1925 was the first to break 2.5 hours.
Al Michaels?
Al Michaels, yeah. Relative.
We'll fact check that.
First time the record got under 2 hours and 20 minutes was Jim Peters in 1953. He's from the UK as well.
Okay.
So 1953, guys were running in 2 hours and 18 minutes.
That's incredible.
An Aussie named Derek Clayton was the first guy to break 2 hours and 10 minutes back in 1967. And then really for the past 20 years, since the turn of the century, the Kenyans / Ethiopians have just been dominating the sport. And nobody has held the world marathon record outside of somebody from Kenya or Ethiopia since, I believe, 2002.
Wow.
So today, the record's Kipchoge. I'm not sure how to pronounce really his first or last name. His first name's like Iliad or Iliad. It's Eluid. His last name's Kipchoge. Everybody calls him Kipchoge. He has the current world record of 2 hours, 1 minute, 39 seconds. And he's actually run a marathon under 2 hours. He ran a 1 hour, 59 minute, and 40-second marathon that was not officially sanctioned because it was one of those things where they had pacers and they had rabbits out for him the entire time to see if a human could actually break 2 hours. Jeez. And he did it, but it was not an official record. So pretty incredible stuff.
That's amazing. I remember when I was like training and like taking the class, I think Meb Keflezighi.
Oh, Meb Keflezighi, yeah.
That was like a name. I mean, it was kind of cool to kind of get into it. And then there's this guy, Dean Karnazes, or I'm not sure how to say his last name. He's the all-night runner.
Oh, okay.
He's like an ultra runner. So his stuff is really interesting. Like, we can talk about that later, but it's like a whole culture. It's like a world, that you can like get sucked into.
Yeah, there's running, right? And you have guys like Usain Bolt, and he's a great runner. Fastest man to ever live. But no, it's not even close to the same type of sport as what these guys are doing in the super long distance. Like these guys aren't even milers. They're 26.2 milers. And then, like you said, you have ultra marathoners that are running 50 milers, 100 milers. We had Mike Trevino from Fort Dodge on the pod, who had the world record at one point for running the most miles in a 24-hour period, in a day.
It's incredible.
And that's a whole nother sport, even though everybody's doing the same thing with the same equipment. They're just running.
It's unreal. Like I enjoyed running to like as a workout, and then I kind of liked running distance, like as part of training, just because I don't know, but I didn't run fast. When you get out there in a half marathon or a marathon, and then there's the elite runners, it is unbelievable. I'll never forget running like the Des Moines half marathon when the elite runners started passing me to finish the marathon. Like I'm at mile 12 or mile 10, I don't know, coming around Grays Lake or whatever, and then these elite runners start passing you to finish. It was unbelievable how fast they were running.
I had that experience at the Bix 7-miler over in Davenport, and Meb Keflezighi was there. So I was running in the same race as Meb.
That's awesome.
And I had that same thing. I think, they start a little bit ahead of you. So, he had a head start on me.
Well,
that's what I'm saying.
He needed it.
But it was shocking. Like, I was at like the halfway mark or whatever. And then these guys are going, and they almost look like I say this when you see a guy like, Rob Gronkowski, or you see a guy like Meb, or some of these elite athletes, and like, we are the same species. Like, I am the same species as Rob Gronkowski or, Kipchoge, because you see them do the exact same thing that you do, and they don't even look close to. I mean, like, their bodies just move differently than mine, and it's pretty fascinating to see athletes like that.
It's incredible. There is a Johnston runner. She went to Johnston High School, and I think she ran at Grandview, Obse Barrow. And she is, I'm probably saying her last name wrong. Obse, though, she went to Johnston, and now she's like trying to get into the Olympics as a runner, and like went from cross country distance running in college to being like an Olympian. And so a friend of mine is the girls cross country and track coach. So like that's how I've kind of come to follow her story. And then you just have someone local, and I think it was like the Olympic trials in LA or something, and you're watching the women's marathon because she's in it, and it's just unbelievable. It's like they're sprinting past people. I mean, they are basically, but for 2 hours and 20 minutes or whatever the women's marathon winner is going to run, it is unbelievable.
So the reason why I wanted to do this pod today is because I recently joined the ranks of the marathoners.
Mm-hmm. I saw the sticker on the back window of your car when I pulled in.
I do not have the sticker, but I was looking at the results from the Des Moines IMT Marathon. Mm-hmm. This took place, I believe, in October. And I'm looking at the results online. And generally speaking, I do the same thing when I'm looking up golf scores, is I always go to the bottom first. I always want to see, like, what did the last place person get in a golf?
Just above the DNFs.
Yeah, exactly. It's like you have 10 people, you had one person die, you had a couple of people that like got hurt, and then like somebody did it in 9 hours.
Oh, man.
And so I was looking at it, and I was fascinated by how many people finished the marathon in like 8 hours, 7 hours, 6 hours. And in my head, I was like, man, how long did those people train to then go out and do a 6-7 hour marathon? And for some people that have never ran before, like, you probably do have to train quite a lot because your body goes through a lot. Mm-hmm. So then in my head, I was like, well, could I go out right now without training and do a 5-6 hour marathon? Or I wasn't really thinking about the time. I was thinking more about, could I complete 26.2 miles without really training? And that's that's what started me on like, and this was also like Halloween weekend. So I'd eaten a bunch of candy. I'm fat. I'm thinking about all that stuff. It's like, I need to get in shape. Maybe I'll just run a marathon and see if I can do this.
I will do all my training and competing in one day, and I'll be fit.
Exactly. I mean, you know how those lies that we tell ourselves? It's like, I'm going to start working out tomorrow. And really, it takes like, months and months and months and months to get into shape. But that was kind of my mindset at the time. And then once I kind of got on the idea, I was like, you know what? That would be kind of fun. I could check a marathon off. Mm-hmm. I wouldn't have to train for it. And it would be kind of a fun challenge.
Yeah, absolutely. And was it?
Yeah, it was. No, it was a really great challenge. And I think part of my reasoning for doing it too is I've always wanted to do a marathon because I believe it's like one of those physical milestones or accomplishments that as anybody that's an athlete or whatever, even if you don't like running, it's in your back of your head that's like, man, it'd be kind of cool to check that milestone off.
So that's kind of my origin story a little bit too. With like, I'm pretty sure it was a Men's Health magazine when we would have been like juniors or seniors in high school. And there was an article, and I don't remember like who was on the cover or whatever, but I'm
somebody
pretty sure
hot.
It was somebody super hot. It was like somebody like The Rock before The Rock. I love The Rock. Let's not go there. But it was an article that was something like The Ultimate Male or something like that.
Yeah. And
it was an article that basically took, and I love this kind of stuff, so like it has stuck with me for 20 years now. And it was something to the effect of like the elite performances, but like that average guys can do. Ooh. It was like all these different ways to be elite without being an elite athlete. And it was like different domain, and it wasn't like based on your weight or your height or anything, but one of them was like grabbing rim.
Yes.
Like only 10% of people can not dunk a basketball, grab rim. It's like 10% of people can do or something. And then it was like a 300-pound bench press.
Ooh.
Is one of these benchmarks. Running a sub 4-hour marathon was one of the benchmarks as like this elite athlete, elite average Joe was kind of like the theme of it. And so and there were others too. I think it was like a 4.940. And, there were certain things. It was like, you're fast and you're strong, but it's not like no one's ever benched 300 pounds before. So I remember thinking that and going through that, and it was like a 300-pound squat, or maybe it was more than that. I don't know. But anyways, I remember being like, I could bench press that much. I could squat or whatever. I could get like the bottom of the net. I couldn't run that fast. But I just remember the marathon being one that stuck with me as like, I think I could do that. The other ones I couldn't do, but if I trained hard enough. And that like is what put the bug in my ear or, whatever in my head until I did it.
Yeah, and you did it in a completely different way than I did it. So I kind of decided over a weekend, and then I had an open morning on Wednesday of that week, and I was like, that's going to be my marathon day on Wednesday.
This is so crazy to me.
Well, yeah, I mean, it is kind of wild. And the more I thought about it, the worse of an idea it got because it's a bad idea. And so I was like, I better do it quick or else I'm not going to do it. Because, you can get really hurt. I'm not recommending doing this because, your body does go through a lot. The other side of it is I do want to run a marathon, but I don't think I could, my body would hold up to the training of a marathon. Mm-hmm. So I would rather get my 26 miles in at one time instead of having to run hundreds of miles over the course of of months. Mm-hmm. And I don't think my knees could hold up to it. I have a bad left knee. And if I run more than maybe twice in a week, I'm done for a while. Mm-hmm. And so I was thinking, I can't have a week where I run, 3 miles this day, 5 miles this day, 3 miles this day, then 16 miles that day. Mm-hmm. And I wouldn't be able to walk for a couple of days. So I couldn't train that way. And that's kind of how you have to train for marathons. Mm-hmm. And so I was like, well, I better just do it because I'll never actually be able to do a training for it.
I mean, you're definitely a fit guy, though. I mean, this isn't like one of those couch potato things.
Yeah.
Like you're working out, but this is different.
I exercise a lot. Mostly like we've got the Peloton, right, for the last couple of years. And I feel like I've gotten a little bit like Peloton heavy in my workouts where I'm depending on the Peloton too much. That's the other reason why I wanted to do something different where it's like the Peloton's great, but you should only be doing it maybe 3 days a week. And then the other 3 days a week that you're working out, you do something different. And so I was also kind of in this rut where I'm just cycling all the time,
Mm-hmm.
right? And it's like, well, is my body even getting a full workout, or am I just getting used to
But
indoor
it's awesome,
cycling?
though.
Yeah, like it's a great sweat. That's why you love it.
Yeah,
like,
it's fun.
So I was kind of in that mode with it. And so when I went out and did it, just to kind of get to the story, I was like, I'm not going to be able to run 26 miles straight because I haven't run very much. I ran a couple of times the week before. I ran that Monday. I ran 4 miles that Monday. And then Wednesday was the marathon. I went out. I walked out of my door at 6 in the morning, exactly 6 in the morning, and I started running. And I ran 6 miles around the block, around Valley High School's track and block. And then I went to the track I had hit 6 miles right at the track. And while my first lap, actually, I dropped off water bottles and a couple of protein bars at the track. Mm-hmm. And so the reason why I wanted to do most of it at the track was because I couldn't set up hydration stations or whatever. So I needed to have it at a place that I could run by a lot. So then I went to the track. I got my first 6 miles in running around the block around Valley High School. Went to the track. Then I walked a lap. While I was walking a lap, I was drinking water and, kind of my first break. And then I ran another 2 miles after that. So I got 8 miles in like the first hour or so.
That's awesome.
And then my buddy Reed McManigal, Guinness
World Record holder.
He stopped by at 7 o'clock, and then we jogged / like walked for about an hour as well. And I think I got like 6 miles in or so with him in the next hour. So we were jogging, walking, mostly like kind of, interval type stuff, but having a good conversation. It was good to like, get away from thinking about things then. And also my thought about doing it on the track is I wanted to space out. I wanted to just fall into the monotony, have podcast on, not even thinking about it, just keep moving forward.
Mm-hmm.
So I get, like 14 miles in the first 2 hours. And I'm feeling pretty good. And then but it's really cold. It started off like 28 degrees when I started, and it was about 32, 33 degrees at about 8 o'clock. And so I was really cold. So I was sweating, but then walking. So my heart rate was never getting up. So I was really cold. Like I was kind of like shivering because my body never got hot and my heart rate never really got up because of the way I was doing it. And then, so then I get like 14 miles in, I walk a couple of laps around the track, and then I run like 2 miles. So I'm at like 16, 17 miles or whatever. And I remember then Reed called me, and I was right at like mile 18 when Reed called me. And I was feeling pretty good at this point. And he calls me, and I tell him I'm feeling pretty good. I was jogging around the track at that time. And as soon as I hung up with Reed, I felt like a shooting pain through my calf. And I still had 8 miles left.
Yeah.
And I had 8 miles left, and my body's starting to hurt, And then once I hit mile 20, it started getting bad. Mm-hmm. And at that point, it started to really, really hurt to run forward. So I started running backwards. And so
Which seemed totally logical at the time.
Because the idea was like, I'm not really worried about my time. I'm not worried about like, oh, you only ran 20 out of the 26. It's like, no, I just want to complete 26.2 miles. Mm-hmm. So at about mile 20, I started running backwards on the straightaways and like walking forwards on the turns and going backwards on the straightaways and then walking forwards around the turns. And I probably did that for the next 3 miles. And that was pretty hard, but it was a lot less painful backwards than forwards. And then the last 3 miles, and I was looking at it, and I was thinking my goal is 5 hours. Mm-hmm. And at like the 18-mile mark, I was going to blow it away. I was on a really good pace for like maybe 4.5 hours or so. And then once you aren't moving very fast, the time goes really, really slow or fast, however you want to look at it. Mm-hmm. Right. And the last three miles or so was really ugly. And it was taking me, 20 minutes to to walk a mile.
Yeah.
I mean, more than 20 minutes actually. Because up at that point, I was walking. When I was walking at like between a 15 and 16 minute pace, and then it had fallen to like between 20 and 22 minutes, and it got pretty slow. But I was able to run the last 2 laps to get to 26.2. So I finished. Nobody was there to see it. I finished exactly at 11 o'clock. So it could have been like 5 hours and 1 second or so, but I finished exactly at 5 hours. And the last 2 laps, like I was running with the goal of breaking 5 hours in my head, but I didn't get it. Like I got it right at 5 hours.
That's really good. I mean, really a 5-hour marathon, especially with no training. That's really good.
No training's a little bit misleading because I'd been exercising a lot, but I hadn't been running a lot.
Yeah.
I guess maybe the point I was trying to make is like, you don't always have to, if your only goal is to complete a marathon, you don't have to do the 6 months of training.
Mm-hmm.
But after doing it, you probably should do, a couple of months of training at least.
So how did the hike go from bottom to top? How did the feet feel afterwards? Knees, hips, everything, like, just how did your body feel?
So one thing that people had warned me about was like, your feet are going to hurt so bad. Mm-hmm. My feet never hurt.
Oh, that's great.
My feet never hurt that day. They didn't hurt the next day.
Wow.
Feet never hurt at all. And
I think running on a track was probably a really good move for that, just because it's probably a better landing spot.
I think so. And I also wonder how much of like your feet hurting is a cumulative of probably the last couple of months of running, where it's like, I didn't have any of that. What really hurt me was my knees. Like naturally, I knew my left knee was going to really, really hurt. And, I was limping pretty bad the last 5 or 6 miles. Where if like, the funny thing is Valley High School, I'm doing this on a Wednesday morning at Valley High School. There's school in session, and during study halls, those kids just come out and walk the track. So there's kids on the track while I'm on the track for like a couple of hours. Different kids because different periods of the day, but they're like all on their phones. They're not, I don't know if they even recognize that I was there, but I was running backwards while they were like walking and watching YouTube or talking to their friends.
They were probably listening to Moonlight Graham show. They didn't realize Moonlight was right there.
Yeah. And so that didn't hurt at all, or my feet didn't hurt, but my knee hurt really, really bad. And the day after, the next 2 days after, I could hardly walk. Like I could hardly walk the next day. The following day, that Friday, it was a little bit better, but still like pretty painful soreness. By Saturday, I felt pretty good.
Yeah.
So, and then today, like I ran a little bit today and feel good. So this is like 3 weeks later where I feel fine.
That's good.
So no long-term effects of it. One thing I was surprised about is my upper body was really sore.
Yeah.
I did not expect that.
I think you make a good point about your feet, because a big thing that I went through with the first marathon was load. Like they talk about load and load management and building up your ability to run 12, 14, 16, 18, 20, 22 miles is just building up. Like it's not even endurance for running. It's like your mental ability, your habits, your pattern, your when do you use your energy bars or whatever you're going to have? When do you hydrate? When do you go to the bathroom? Like building up that capacity over 18, 20, 22 miles. But that cumulative effect on your feet. I mean, there was another thing that was like, you need multiple pairs of shoes.
Yeah.
So that you're training your feet differently. You don't wear one pair of shoes every week, every run, because you've got to like take it easy on your feet. So I wonder, but yeah, I mean, I think that's a huge disadvantage of not training at all, was like building up some of those things. But I went through, my feet were really sore. I had to like wear different shoes. Like I'd wear slides. We had to stop and buy slides on the way home from my second marathon because my feet hurt so bad. Black toenails, all the whole deal.
Yeah, I didn't have any of that. Like the toenails, the feet, none of it. One thing I wish I would have planned for is I should have started at my house and ended at my house.
Yeah.
But I had to pick up all my stuff, like my water bottles. But the worst part is I had a 1/4-mile walk from the finish line back to my house afterwards. And that took a really long time. And it was super cold. So I didn't plan it well. It was very irrational. But Tom, you did it in an opposite way. Your first marathon, you did it as a marathon class at Iowa.
Yeah.
And so this was, literally by the book. Mm-hmm. So I did it,
not by the book.
Not by the book. You did it by the book. So tell me the by the book part of it.
So I've always had this goal, and I went to the University of Iowa, and Pre and Deuce, two of our friends that we went to high school with, went to college with me. And it was one of those things where we were signing up for classes. And this was like a big thing was, it was probably the same at UNI, but it was in like graduation order, so like some of our friends that also went to our high school that were a year ahead of us, we had them like hold seats for us, and then they would drop the class so we could add it when it was our turn to register. And we were like, let's do this marathon training and racing class, which was a really popular class. I don't know if it's still offered or not. I was trying to do some research. The instructor was a guy named Cable Gray, which is just an awesome name.
Sounds like a character from a novel.
Yeah, that's a great name, Cable Gray. And so he taught it for a while afterwards. The last thing I saw was like 2015 or something. But anyways, so marathon training racing was a hugely popular class. We were like, let's do it. Let's all do it. So we get these girls to register and then drop, because otherwise the class would have filled up. And so we get into it, and the course, description, how they are, is like, you need to sign up for this class, ready to run like 8 miles or something. Ooh. With the end goal of the class being to complete a marathon. It's not part of the grade, but that's what you're on, is on a training regimen. So we run in, and we worked out a lot in college, like, in between drinking, and we go to the first night of the class, and we actually met in the field house, which is like the student workout facility, basketball courts, all that stuff. We met in a classroom, and that was the only time we ever met in a classroom. And he like walked us through the whole thing. He's like, this is the goal. He was great. This is the goal of the class. This is what we're trying to do. This is the regimen. This is the routine. But he was very much an average Joe. Like, he was a good marathon runner, like, he's fast, but he was like a regular guy. And his story was like same kind of thing as me and Tony and Pre, was like, I want to run a marathon. Him and his buddies were kind of runners, kind of got into it, kind of got good at it, and was asked to be the instructor for this course.
So he wasn't like a pro runner, elite type of guy.
No, I mean, he was not elite, but he was a really good runner. Like, I don't know if he would qualify for Boston and stuff like that, but like, he was a good runner, and he was smart, but he was very much an average guy. And his joke was always like, what kind of beer they would drink after the run, just like a very normal guy. But anyways, so the class met one night a week, but then he also had a second night that you were supposed to do this other run. So he would program for the whole class 2 long runs a week. And so it'd be like 10 on Sunday, and then on Wednesday night with the class, it'd be like 15 or 17, whatever. Like, that's what we were building up to. It didn't start that way. But then he would say, you need to do a 3-mile run and a 5-mile run or whatever. So every week it was like a medium run, a short run, your long run, and then another short run. So you were running anywhere from like 8 on Sunday, 3 on Tuesday or Monday or Tuesday. And then you'd have your long run, which would be like 12. And then you'd run like another 2 or 3. And it was just kind of built up. But he talked a little bit about nutrition and hydration and stuff. And when we would do those long runs, he would go park his car somewhere in Iowa City, and that was on the route. This is like back in the day, right? So he would print out the route for you on paper, and he'd walk you through it, and then everybody would take off running. And we were all, Tony and I, those guys were kind of about the same speed. They were faster than me, so they'd kind of run together. And I ran with this girl, Lana or something. What's her name? But anyways, she was about my speed, and so you got to know these people, which was super fun, because it was like, let's go get beers after this. But it was, you were learning like how to manage your feet, how to manage your knees, your arm swing, how to hold your hands, like what it's going to feel like. And then he would talk about things like nutrition during your run. And I don't know if they're still a big thing, but like those goo packs, those goos and gels and stuff. And he would talk about that, kind of like when you use them, how you use them, and all that. So I had a lot of guidance and support, and then built up to the Mad
Did you
City
stick with it?
Yes, I did. And because, it was competitive, and you had free time in college. That's another huge thing.
Right.
Like, it's like the perfect time to run a marathon, because you always had time to do it. It was just whether you were motivated or not. And then having friends in the class. And sometimes you would plan like, hey, let's all do our Sunday run together. Or, this group of us, let's go start at this place together, even if we don't run the same speed. But that was like a super positive experience. And then it all built up. It was in the spring semester to run in a marathon in May. And that's where I did the Mad City Marathon in Madison, Wisconsin.
How'd it go?
My goal was a 4-hour marathon. because
Men's
Health told me that's elite. And it was pretty good. So the Mad City Marathon was really fun. So ran it with me. Tony ended up having a knee injury through training. Like he kind of wore his knee out. Mm-hmm. And then that Lana, she ran it as well. But then Julia came with me.
Hot.
Yeah. Julia came with me. Tia, Pre's wife now, and another friend came. I think my sister Kelly came.
Nice.
My sister Kelly was a runner. She had done a bunch of 5Ks and 10Ks, and she's done half marathons and stuff. So it was like we made like an experience out of it. So it was just incredible. So then you actually start running the marathon, and everything is great. And then like you keep running. That's actually the problem of the marathon, is that it's really long. And I remember getting to the halfway point, and I was like at 2:10 or 2:12. I was just behind my goal pace.
Yep.
And so then you get in your head and you're like, okay, I'm going to try to maybe pick it up a little bit, just to try to cut down. And you start when you run with a real marathon with a group. There's a person who's like, I'm going to run a 4-hour marathon, and they're holding a sign. Yeah. And if you want to stick with that pacer, because they
will stay on that pace.
They're going to do it. And, you start with that group, and then that person gets a little bit away from you, and then all of a sudden they're like a mile away from you, and you've lost them. And
if you try to pick it up after 13, 14, 15 miles, and your heart rate's going up, your stride is changing, that's kind of how things can go really south, or you can get hurt.
Totally. And your body doesn't respond well to that change.
Yeah.
And because I can remember during a training run in the class, I remember right where I was. I remember right exactly everything that was happening. We had just had a water break at like the Student Athletic Center, which is where like the tennis courts are at like Finkvine or whatever. And I'm turning and I'm going past this come and go, and my right quad cramps and it kicks my leg forward. Well, at the same moment, my hamstring cramps and I drop to the ground. And I just remember falling on the ground being like, what am I going to do? Well, I made it through that run, and then in the marathon though, like I started to have those kinds of feelings of like, what am I going to do? What do I do now? And this is the thing, like for you to do that marathon by yourself, even with Reed for a little while, you didn't have a crowd. You didn't have, because there's like stuff going on a marathon route.
Yeah.
People are cheering for you. There's stuff going on. It's kind of fun.
So that was one of the reasons I wanted to do it too. I wanted to see if I could handle the mental side of things. I wonder, just all alone. And I had some of that calf cramping stuff coming up too. You said quad and hamstring. Mine was my calf. But yeah, I think one of my theories was no matter how good of shape you're in, if you're not an elite runner and you're trying to run a marathon, you're going to hit a wall. Mm-hmm. And how do you respond when you hit the wall? And that was one of the things that I was really curious about with the marathon. Mm-hmm. It's like, even if I trained for 3 months for this, I know I'm going to hit a wall at the 20 to 22 mile mark. Then what? Because I feel like that's the kind of the big challenge outside of just the 26.2 miles is how do you respond when you've hit a physical limitation that you've never encountered before?
Mm-hmm. That was so. Yes, exactly. That's kind of what I was like. A marathon would be perfect if it was like 21 or 22 miles.
Well, Philippides.
Yeah, exactly. If we would have just listened to him.
Well,
right?
we let the Queen change it up.
Stupid Queen. That's another reason for the American Revolution.
Yeah.
Thank you. But so I remember, so it was fun though. Like my experience was fun. So I'm running with Lana because we had been kind of at the same pace.
Did Julia know about Lana?
Oh yeah. That was the other.
Okay.
I mean, she had like a fiance and stuff.
Okay.
But we were training together and we'd kind of planned to run together or whatever. And it was like mile 7. We thought it was a water station. People are like cheering and, they've got tables and all these cups and we run up and we're like, hey, thanks. And we grab a cup. It's beer. Like we take a big drink of beer and we're like, oh God, that was a bad idea, and then, but you're laughing and it's fun and stuff. But at like mile probably 16 or 17 is when you're starting to have this like, okay, now I've got to make it through like 8-9 more miles. Okay. Now what am I going to do? And I remember at like mile 18, really, really feeling it. And you're kind of wondering, oh God, but you don't know the route. You know what I mean? So I don't know what's around the next corner. Yep. You run by the football stadium, Camp Randall and all that. Like it was awesome, but you don't know what's coming next. So that was also brutal. And then at like mile 21, there was a water station. Again, you'd think I'd have learned my lesson. They were giving out root beer.
Come on.
Oh man. That was
a dick move at that
They
point.
probably could have told me. Maybe they said, I don't. But I drank that, and that was like, my body was like, "Ugh." I didn't really throw up, but it was like, okay, I feel awful now. How am I even going to finish this?
They used to do that at the Dam to Dam too, with a mile left. There'd be a champagne at the water station, and I did that, and I was so mad. Because I was dying.
Yeah.
I was just dying.
Exactly.
And the last thing I wanted, well, actually, the only thing I did want was water, and then, you know, I get like this hyssop, here.
Wow.
Yeah,
Not to
sorry.
be melodramatic or anything. Very specific reference to those who paid attention in church.
That's a New Testament one. Sorry.
But no, so then you kind of gut it out for like those last 4 miles. And I mean, you do finish at the world's largest broad festival, which that was a nice little feature. But yeah, those last 4 miles, it's like, this isn't fun. I'm not enjoying this. How am I going to do this? It's totally mental. And like I said, you were alone for that. That would be way harder than running into a crowd and people are making noise and they kind of help you finish.
Yeah, but I mean, part of it too is at least the way I was running at the end of when I did it was so embarrassing. Like I didn't want anybody seeing how bad I was struggling. Mm-hmm. I think I don't know if I would have been embarrassed or not, but like I kind of didn't want to see. I didn't want anyone to see like me running backwards or me limping for the last 4 miles or whatever, you know?
See, and so this is where I think the difference is. So I was dead, right? Like I mean, if they had said, "Oops, accidentally, the finish line's actually one more block," I would have fidipadied right there on the spot, right? You're welcome. And but I was miserable and tired and hot. But like you're proud and excited too. But like I was done running. But I think because first of all, I was 22 years old or whatever. I was younger, but like because I'd been training, I didn't fall apart physically afterwards.
You were ready for that.
My feet hurt. Yeah. But like, I remember we got done and, then we went and had a beer and we're like walking around because it was like a carnival in the middle of Madison. It was super cool. And I'm with my girlfriend and my, we're my buddies and we go out for dinner that night. We went and drank beer and sat in the hotel pool and went out for dinner. And so it was very different. You know what I mean? Because I was tired and sore, but like I ran like 2 days later.
Wow.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But like, and I had a little bit of the toenail thing, but not too bad. And a little bit of like the chafing and all that stuff. I did not have the bloody nips.
Ooh, I did have those.
Because Cable said, Band-Aid it up, man.
And you did.
Oh, hell yeah.
Yeah, the nipples were really raw for about a week.
It's like a joke with The Office. Andy Bernard, I've walked 5 marathons, right? And then they do the 5K, and he's, ooh, the nips, and there's blood everywhere. That is so real. There are people all over the marathon with bleeding nipples.
How much of the 26.2 did you walk?
So like, okay, so we were talking about training for the marathon. So the other thing I was going to say was I remember checking in for the marathon and there was a guy, because it's like what would you call it? Like they're handing out, not like a show, but like a expo. It was like an expo, right? Of all the running tables and products and programs and clubs. And there was a guy giving a speech about the 1 to 3 method. And it was this whole thing, and it's a real thing. And maybe it was 2 to 4. I don't know. But anyways, it was like you run 1 minute, you walk 3. You run 1 minute, you walk 3. It puts you on a pace if you do it like this to finish a marathon in 5 hours or whatever. And and I just remember being like, that's crazy. Like my goal is to not walk. My goal is to run the whole thing.
Right.
But like, and I ran, like I said, I ran the first half of the marathon just a little bit slower in pace. Probably a mile 16 or 17 was I would walk through the water station to get a drink and not spill all over hell. And then run after. But like by mile 21, 22, I was starting to fall apart because the longest training run that we did in that class, I'm pretty sure the longest programmed run was 18. Because it was like, if you can run 18, you can run 26. Like that was, I remember talking about that. And
even though it's over 8 miles more.
Yeah, which is insane because you had to start the class running 8 miles.
Yeah.
If your goal is to handle 8 miles and then your end of class, and maybe the longest program run was 20, but I'm pretty sure the longest I did was 18.
Do you think marathons are a good idea for average Joes like you and I to be running?
I think there's 2 ways to take it. I think if you're an average Joe who wants to be like the serious runner, just like people do CrossFit, just like people do pickup basketball and stuff, like if you want to take it seriously, then I think then you have to like physically prepare. Like I think you have to train. So like I think what you did was not a great idea but I understand why you did it because your knee and stuff. But like if you wanted to be a runner, I think training and preparing, I don't ever see myself being a guy who's going to say like, I'm going to get like a 6-minute mile, or I'm going to go out and I'm going to win a 5K. Like I'm not that kind of runner. But for me, it was like, if I run within my limits of like 10 to 11 minute pace, I could probably train and do a half marathon again or something. I could probably do another full marathon, but like I have no desire to anymore because I don't want to put that time into it.
Yeah. Well, that was another reason is my wife Tori's a good runner, and she was within a couple of minutes of qualifying for Boston. She has insane. Run 2 marathons. She placed like 6th in the Omaha Marathon in the women's division cool. a couple of years ago. And she kind of discovered in college, because she had more time, she was never fast, but she was a good marathoner because she could hold a pace forever. But she takes her time to train. And I've always kind of scoffed at it, how you do it in the house. And so she trained very similar to how you did. But I love the idea of foot races, and I love the idea of physical competitions and racing. But it seems like we've fallen into this model of foot racing where it's like you're running either a 5K, a half marathon, or a marathon. Like that's kind of what everybody does. And I don't know if that's a good thing to be in. Like I brought up the Bix earlier. It's a 7-mile race in Davenport. I think that's really cool. Like that's a really, really hard race. It's a challenge in of itself. It's not a half marathon or a marathon. You don't get the sticker for it. But it's every bit as challenging because it's a tough course and it's a hard foot race, And I like the idea of maybe varied differences, like a 5-mile run or a mile run, and some of that stuff. And I think some of that stuff is healthier than training for half marathons or marathons, because the other side of it too is when you're doing marathon training or half marathon training, you're not really pushing your heart rate all that much. So like if you're trying to lose weight through running, like you should be doing sprint training. You shouldn't be doing,
steady state cardio.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think it's a very different type of fitness. I think so. Going back to the average Joes do it. I think it's such a social thing, like running clubs. Like the way I took that class was so incredibly fun because you're doing it with people and then you're going to the bar, or even like the marathon or the half marathon itself, like it finishes with a party. Yeah. And you go to the, everybody's drinking beer and there's food and you're hanging out downtown in the plaza or whatever. Right. Nolan Plaza. That's a really fun element of it. But I think it's like different goals. I think I would be like, when I was a runner, I was a social runner. Like my goal was personal. I wasn't trying to beat people, because that's also very humbling. When my second marathon, when I did have a goal and I was, I had run one, my goal was to beat myself. And then I'm coming in mile like 23 and I catch Herb, which really was his name, who had to be 80 years old. And he had the funkiest little like style, bleeding nipples. And it's like, this dude's been in front of me the whole time. Like I'm catching him at mile 23. So it's very humbling, but it was social. It was fun. I'm a Green Bay Packer fan to be in Green Bay. It was a weekend trip with my wife. Like that, I think that aspect of it is really fun. But no, I think it's like RAGBRAI kind of thing, like the casual rider who's there for the party versus a serious cyclist who's trying to beat the crowd and go fast.
Running is so hard on our bodies, though, that I wish that, the marathon of cycling was more popular, or the marathon of swimming was more popular. Some of those things that are a lot easier on our bodies. Like Julia, your wife's a great swimmer, right? Like
extremely great.
She is great. She's the athlete in the family. And I wish there was a marathon of swimming, because if more people did that, there would probably be it's way easier, but you probably would have a lot more people drowning. People die in marathons. A lot more people would die during the swimming equivalent of a marathon. Now they think about it.
But I also think it's cost prohibitive, right? Like to do a cycling event, you got to have like $1,000, $1,500, $2,000 bike and equipment and the distance too. Like I don't think you would have to do a 76 or 112 mile ride or whatever some of those like triathlon distances are. To your point, they are so much better on your body. But like how many people are good enough swimmers to do a 5-mile swim? you know, like that's a hard swim, and you'd probably have to do it in open water.
But you could say the same about running. Like, all of it seems crazy when you just say
True.
it if
Fair
you haven't
point.
been training for it.
Fair point. We should do a Twitter poll. How many people could swim 3 miles or something, like come up with some moonlight distance? I mean, swimming's hard.
Swimming's hard.
Swimming is hard, and then you'd have to do it like in open water, which is
The
I've heard is hard because I am not a swimmer.
Yeah. I know you're not a swimmer.
I did swim the length of the pool for the first time in my life
Hey.
this summer. 35 years old.
Congratulations. So we should bring up that Brendan
Yes.
is an ultra marathoner.
Moonlight Brendan. I don't understand those people.
Moonlight Brendan is an ultra marathoner.
Mm-hmm.
And Brendan he's just done some crazy races. He's one of those guys that is almost does things like I do, like, hey, I'm going to run a marathon 2 days from now. But he does that with like ultras. And he says, like, I'm going to do an ultra 50 miler in like 2 months.
That's incredible.
And he's done some wild races. The last race he did, I think it was a 50 miler, and they cut it off at a certain time. Or maybe it was a 100 miler.
Wow.
I need to clarify this with Brendan. It might have been they cut it off at 24 hours or something, and he was like 4 miles short of completing it.
Oh my!
But he didn't make the time, and that would be hard.
Oh, it'd be brutal because that's like a whole lifestyle too. Like Brendan's got like a family and a career and a podcast, graphic design,
right?
All this stuff. I have a friend. Like a friend. We were friends in college. Who's a professional ultra runner, Don Reichel, and he trains and he posts pictures and he's a sponsored runner and he's a run coach. It is his career, and he has posted pictures of when he wasn't able to finish or what he looked like the next day after a 100-mile run. There was one picture I remember he posted of using the little shopping cart for old people where like you're scootering through the grocery store to buy beer.
He's got to walk, right? Like in the 100-mile, do they walk?
I think especially some of that stuff like Leadville and stuff where they're running through a mountain. Like,
yeah,
I think you've got to like be high. It's like a hike run, but it's got a time limit. I don't know what it is for some of the races, but
right. Those ultras, like if you don't hit certain checkpoints in certain times, you're just done.
And they do med checks too. Like you have to pass a medical exam, which is, I mean, think about that. So after I ran my first marathon and then, it was fun. It was a positive experience or whatever. And I kept running like casually. I was selling plasma, as one does as a finishing college person. Beer money. And I read a book, Confessions of an All-Night Runner, which is the Dean Carnazes book. And it is the craziest story. This dude is like midlife crisis, decides to go for a run, and he becomes like sponsored by North Face and all these people. He would run like 50 marathons, 50 states, 50 days. He would run nonstop for, however long days. And it was like, it kind of got me juiced again to do another one, but like the timing and all that kind of stuff. So the second marathon I ran, I just thought, okay, I'm going to run as fast as I can for miles because I'm only going to run like twice a week. And I kind of shortened it and cheapened it. I did run the fastest half marathon of my life, the first half of my second marathon. And then I completely fell the freak apart in the second half of that marathon.
Was the second one slower than the first?
The second marathon was 10 minutes slower than the first.
Because you just planned it wrong.
I absolutely... Well, so like I was training in Ankeny. I was running by myself. I was trying to remember some of the things from the class and stuff. But like my goal at that time was like, I know I'm not going to get up to 18 and 20 mile runs because I don't have time. Like my wife probably would have supported me if I had asked, like said, this is what I'm going to do. Will you meet me over here? And asked her for that. She would have. But I was like, instead of that, I'm going to run like faster than pace for 10 miles instead of doing a 15 miler. And I did. I ran like maybe just under a 2 hour half marathon, the first half, which is probably the fastest one I ever ran. And my goal was a 4 hour and 30-minute marathon. And
so you had plenty of time.
And then I fell apart. Yeah. Like I could barely walk. Yeah, it was the worst. And that's where I did run because you get to run a loop through Lambeau Field. It's called Touch the Tundra, and you don't actually get to touch the tundra though. It's ironic, I guess. But you go through the parking lot, in through like a loading dock where the players would walk out, a lap around the stadium, and then you finish in the parking lot. And so I did run that, but I fell apart. Feet were dying. Body was aching.
That's what makes the elite runners even more incredible.
Mm-hmm.
Is they're doing it in like 2 hours.
It's unreal.
Like for us, it's like a quarter of the day we're devoting to running. For them, it's like, 2 gym classes.
Yeah. It's those kids walking around the track at Valley High School during study hall. And the recovery. Because like when you run a marathon, or if I run a marathon, it's like, it's going to crush me.
Yeah,
like,
your body's going through trauma.
Yeah, it's really hard.
I actually just looked this up today. So a lot of medical studies on marathoning because people die. Like there's 5 to 10 people every year in America that die during marathons. There's like 1,100 marathons in the world a year, a bunch of them in the United States, and people die. Like it's hard work. And so one of the things I noticed was for people that have run less than 30 kilometers per week in training for the marathon, they potentially can have like serious heart issues.
Oh, wow.
So I fall into that category. Thankfully, haven't had any heart issues because they were testing them within the following weeks, and so far, so good. But like the threshold was anything over 45 kilometers per week of training, no difference at all.
Wow.
Like just 100% fine. So the cutoff line for this medical thing that I just read was 45 kilometers per week, which is what? That is 27 miles.
27 miles.
27 miles per week. 27, 28 miles right in there. So
I'm not good at conversions. The queen again.
Well, I was thinking 5K is 3.1 miles. So times 9, right?
Yeah.
27.9.
It's whatever the queen wants it to be. She'll just move it if she wants to.
Yeah. Well, that's Meghan Markle on that.
But so after I ran that second one, to like come full circle, I had like the juice to run the second one because I was like, I can do better. So that was my motivation. I did not do better. And it was like brutal. I mean, we had fun in Green Bay. Like it was cool. It was brutal. And that I will never do another one.
Wouldn't you get, why don't we get just as much satisfaction out of running like a really, really good 10 mile? You know what I mean?
The marathon
We're
is
like,
a
you're
thing.
running it faster. I know the marathon's a thing, but like, I just feel like there's so much buildup of running, even a 5K for some people. It's just like, I mean, you could just go out there and do it yourself.
Yeah.
You don't need to pay $50. You don't need, this shirt.
T-shirt is from 2007.
I know.
And I'm still
it's
wearing
a great shirt. But like, you don't need it. But I guess there is a social aspect.
Yeah,
of it.
I think it is. I think there's a little bit of like, I don't want to say like, look at me because I'm really slow. But I do remember thinking, like I used to work with a woman who.
But
like,
you ran a half marathon under 2 hours.
Yeah, well, that was
not
fun.
Slow.
Well, true, but so much slower than other people. I worked with a woman who's a really good marathoner, and her husband's really fast, and like. But I do remember before the second one being like, okay, I'm going to finish the second one. I'm getting the sticker for the car. Isn't that weird? Because I thought like if I
Did you get the sticker?
I thought if I ran 2, I'd had like earned
the
it.
sticker.
Because I feel like if you run 1, it's like, no offense, it's like fluky. Like, oh, you did it once.
Right.
I don't know why. That was in all in my head. Then I ran the second one.
Anybody can roll out of bed and run a marathon.
but I built it up in my head like to say I'm a marathoner or whatever. I need to run 2. So then I ran 2, and then I was like, I will never run another one. So no, I did not get the sticker. Especially I think since I did worse.
What do you think?
Didn't feel like I deserved
when you're
it.
Behind a guy at a light that has the sticker, or even worse, the 13.1.
I have 2 13.1 stickers on my car.
No,
I don't.
You would never put that on the Buick.
No, I actually love my car. No, I think you should be proud. If you've done it, you should be proud of yourself.
Yeah.
I think like when you're rocking it though, like when you put it on the car, that you're 26, like that to me would indicate that you're doing them consistently. Like you're doing 1 or 2 a year.
I'm a
more.
marathoner.
I am an active marathoner, and that's why I was like, I don't fit the stereotype. I'm a big guy. Like I'm not. I don't look like a runner. People are usually surprised that I've done it, but like I'm not a marathoner. I just did 2 marathons. But
what when you're behind somebody at a stoplight, what bumper sticker could they have in front of you where you would not make fun of them? Because I feel like almost every bumper sticker I'm ready to make fun of them for.
Yeah, I'm not a bumper sticker. I like,
you know what I mean? Like the family, they got the families one,
the stick people,
or like different versions of that. You know, like you'll have the Star Wars
I've
family,
seen that one.
or like some of those, or you have like the coexist one. Just the marathons.
Yeah.
You have the kind of hippie person that has it from every national park that they've been to.
Yeah. I'm not a big bumper sticker guy. I
Right, me
know.
either. That's why I'm making fun of the people in front of me.
Yeah, so I don't know what I would cheer. I don't know what I would support. I guess you got to do you. You got to. I put like I got a Johnson sticker probably or a Hawkeye one.
I kind of always get a kick out of bumper stickers where who are the people that buy a sticker? And I got a whole door full of stickers, but it's in the privacy of my home. That's just think I want the whole world to know this about me.
I mean, when you're in it, like
Moonlight Graham, maybe
Moonlight Graham, probably. I get recognized.
You put the Moonlight Graham sticker.
I think the thing with the marathon, it is a huge accomplishment.
Yeah,
like what you did an incredibly hard thing, and you should be proud of it. Like even if it finished and you're kind of embarrassed about your gait and or whatever.
And
like,
I don't mean to take away from that.
Yeah,
like.
But I think that's where it comes because then they sell the sticker at the race.
Yeah, you're right.
That's where you're in it.
I should have, and I'm not making fun of people that. Well, I kind of am making fun of people that put the sticker on their car. I like the sticker. It's like a two thing. I think bumper stickers are just kind of funny.
I think it's like it's such a like an experience, and I think you do kind of get sucked into it. Like that's like the expo, right? Like they're selling you everything. You can buy special belts for your water bottles. Like, not a cult is the wrong word, but it is a culture. Like you get totally sucked in, and I think then if you're in a running club and like that is cool, but yeah, I don't know.
What's the next average Joe thing that we can do?
I don't know. I felt like
Tom, we're in our mid 30s, getting dangerously close to our late 30s.
I know. I'm over the hill for late 30s.
And I feel like, there's these other things out there that there's a list of them, but we can't give up on them yet. Like that list is still alive. It's still active, and we need to start crossing things off before it's too late. But you know what? It's never too late because Herb ran that marathon at 80.
Oh my God.
But
bled like hell out of his nips.
But that's kind of what I'm interested in now as like, you get married, you're a dad, you're not in as good a shape as you used to be, but you got to keep pushing yourself as a man, as an athlete. And I want to know what the next thing is, because you always got to have something out there. And that's what the marathon really is for people. It's not just that I ran/walked 26.2. It's that I accomplished this thing in life.
Yeah. This summer, I set a goal to like a physical, like to bench 300 pounds again, to like do that. And I had a buddy. Yeah. I had a buddy who's a CSDS guy. Like he knows this stuff. Helped me come up with a plan. And I did. I hit 300 and
congrats, Tom.
Well, but it's funny because then it's like
now we get to the real purpose of this podcast.
but then it was funny because then it was like I remember doing it. It's like July or whatever, and I hit my goal, and I like Snapchatted my wife, and I'm like, all right, like now what? What do you I can't do anything with that. But there is a cool one. The swim pool we go to does a mile swim.
Ooh.
In the summer, like there's one day where they block off a couple lanes, and all day long you can go. You don't have to do it. It's not like in a certain amount of time. People like swim, I don't know how many laps a mile is, but it's like some people swim like 10 laps. I don't know. And then they take a break, and then they get in and swim 10 more. And so, like I said, I am a terrible swimmer. My wife is a very strong swimmer. Jack and Grace both do swim teams. So that is something. I think that's like my next goal is to become a better swimmer and to do the mile swim at the pool next summer. That would be like my next fitness goal.
That's a long swim.
We spend a lot of time at the pool in the summer, so I think I can get there.
All right.
Teacher's hours.
Yeah, here we go. Yeah, I think maybe the fallacy in all these like things, whether it's 300 pounds on the bench press or 26.2 miles of running or swimming a mile, it's like once you're done with it, it's then what?
Yeah.
And the real key to health and fitness is it just has to become a lifestyle. Mm-hmm. And it can't just stop once the goal is accomplished. And maybe that's what I'm looking for.
Yeah.
You know,
well, you still do. You said you still play like flag football or
I used
basketball.
to.
You like pickleball. Like
COVID kind of wiped a lot of that stuff out. Like rec leagues were dying before COVID, and now they're dead.
I played like this is not a physical accomplishment, but I played like slow pitch, and that was so fun to be like team sports and stuff. And I think that's the difference with some of this stuff is like doing something individually, like training for a marathon or whatever, versus doing something socially, like being on a team or in a club or doing something active consistently. Slow pitch softball is not the ticket to health. Don't mishear me on that. But I do think like it was fun to train like when you were an athlete because you were on a team. You weren't training to train. You were training for a goal. Right. And now that we're old, it's like it's kind of just training is the goal, just to keep working out.
Should we get a team together?
That'd be awesome.
The Moonlighters?
The Moonlighters.
What are we just do?
Sign up for every season.
Yeah.
I don't care what we do. Soon, our kids will be at the cheering section. That'll be kind of fun.
Yeah, I'm sick and tired of going to all these kids' games. They need to start going
to our games. Oh, my God. That should be like the new slogan of the show.
Yeah.
Kids are going to our games. You know Big Ben would be up for something.
Oh, yeah.
And he's a utility guy. He could do it. I mean, we could do a basketball league. He could do slow pitch, I bet. He could do anything.
All right, Tommy, we got to figure out our next pod will be in a sauna. We got to get a good topic for it.
I can't wait.
But I think that wraps it up. Anything else we need to cover on the marathons?
Band-Aid the nips, people.
Band-Aid the nips. Drink a lot of water.
Drink a lot of water. Drink a lot of water.
And you can do it.
Yeah, you can. It's like mind over matter.
It's a big...
You just keep going.
Yeah. Okay. Thanks, Tom. Thank you for listening to Tom and I's conversation about running marathons. As an update to Kevin Costner, he is, of course, not responding to my phone calls, my emails, my text messages, my DMs. But you know what? That's okay. It's Thanksgiving week. I am thankful for you guys, the listeners. I'm thankful for the rest of the Moonlight Graham Show team here. So thank you guys for listening to this podcast. Have a wonderful Thanksgiving. Eat a great meal with your family. Tell everybody that you love them, and enjoy the time with your friends and family this week. Have a great week, Moonlighters.
It's Moonlight Graham, yeah. It's a pretty good program, broadcasting to the heartland. Sports stories for the everyman. It's Moonlight Graham, yeah. Please follow us on Instagram. You're loving us on Twitter too. You download every pod we do. It's Moonlight Graham.